This episode of the Wedding Film School Show is brought to you by MusicBed, the best music licensing platform for wedding filmmakers. Head over to themusicbed.com and enter our code WFS on checkout to get a free month on your annual wedding subscription. Now, on to the show.
This is where I think a lot of people lose steam. We give a lot of correction. Many people do not give anyone correction. That person should be getting feedback as they do their job.
Right.
And that's how they know you care.
I would say the main thing that differentiates us is just we have to have another layer of communication. There's this web of communication that we have to have. And understanding that you have to have that comes from failing a million times beforehand.
I'ma get right in my bag. Why you gonna try to get mad? Everybody wanna keep up. Don't you know I move too fast? I'ma zip right past. Drip all on my swag.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. We have another great episode today. Thank you for joining us. Per usual, Jason McCutcheon in the house. What's up, dude?
Excited about today's topic
Yeah?
because, one of the things I remember when we talked to Craig Adams and he always said like proof of work, right? You got to show people. Don't just tell people, show people. And it's something like I've always thought through with our podcast and also like our business. It's one of the things like I'm weirdly insecure about, Jared, is the fact that we have a studio.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it feels really good sitting in our new studio.
It does feel good.
So right now we're actually surrounded by all of our new lights and the whole thing is coming together. My dad is in the other room as we speak, creating the backdrop that's going to go over here eventually. Right now it's just this black wall. But we are kind of creating, making, and it's going to feel good when it's done. But overall, it does feel good to be
everybody's moved
in the studio. Yeah, everyone's
They're
moved
all
in.
working.
The equipment closet is 75% there. I still probably have days to get everything organized and literally thousands of cords next door to go through. But overall, feeling very good. But I think you're right. It's always been a weird topic talking about the fact that we are a studio.
Just even like when you talk about wedding filmmaking in general, and like that your context is really different than
Right.
a lot of other people's, and like
It's hard to be relatable.
well, and also like that the average person doesn't have a favorable view of studios.
Right. Because the average person's going to say like, well, if you have multiple people working on a project, then it has to lower the quality, right?
Yes.
It's going to be because no one really cares. There's a lack of like the same type of motivation as opposed to the artiste that's going to be there from the beginning to end, the person that's, talking to people on the phone all the way to the end of like delivering the DVDs or whatever. And I don't know, like coming from the world of production, like a little bit about my background. I don't think we've really talked about this much, but like I came from the background of, well, first of all, Jason was my media school teacher in high school way back in the day. But after that, going to media school and learning production and then getting a job as the director of photography of a production house after working there for a little bit, I was shooting like music videos, documentaries, and it was always team work, make the dream work. It was always, there were editors, there were shooters, there were ACs, there were DPs, there were, all the producer, director, there were all these roles. And then moving into the wedding films where, people really just had one role, which was a million different roles, and they were just working by themselves. It was a weird transition for me. And I couldn't really grasp why, but it does make sense when you're just the one making all the money. And, people probably aren't making enough money to be able to spread the wealth, right? Like that's the real reason why people don't kind of specialize in the wedding industry, right? It's like they're just not making enough money. And then when they are making enough money, they don't want to share it. So it is a different type of approach. But for us, I think there are a lot of reasons why. And we're going to go through a little bit of that today. So if you are interested in, creating a studio, making something like,
Or just knowing what goes into it, because
right,
for us it's just like a little peek behind the curtain of how we operate on a
Right.
week-to-week basis, and some of it is just necessity, some of it is our decision that our values, but a lot of it is just like how you got to operate to survive.
Yeah.
So why don't we kind of what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of walk you through what is a studio, and why we chose to go this direction. Kind of maybe a little bit of a peek in what a week is like. We'll look at this week and we'll talk a little bit about how we're operating. And then I think we want to talk about something that is really important to us, which is like, and I feel like no matter what you're doing, by the way, Jared, this is relevant, which is how do you keep quality doing as you do more and more films?
Right.
How do you make sure that they represent you in a way that you're proud? We personally, like, we never kick a film out the door that isn't something we're proud of. And I feel confident about this. Like, I feel like I could give you access to we don't release every film, just like no one does.
Right.
But I feel like I could give you access to our entire portfolio and let you look at any film. And I promise you, there's none of these films out there that are just like these terrible films that don't represent me. Mm-hmm. Because for us, like, the planners we're working with, the venues we're working with, they know. They see our best work and they expect that work every time. That's why they book us. Mm-hmm. And so, we thought we might want to talk a little bit about how do you maintain quality as you're scaling, and some of the things we do to maintain quality with our team, with our contractors, even with ourselves, like staying motivated and actually giving a crap. Because I think it'd be easy to be like, yeah, I'm not shooting this weekend, which is not very often for me and Jared, but I'm not shooting and I'm just sitting there collecting money and watching these people do stuff for me. And March, go, all you lemmings, make me money. Mm-hmm. And like, that's not how we operate. We wouldn't be happy with that business.
Yeah. So why don't we start? Like you said, let's dive right into just like basically what is a studio. So what are some fundamentals that you think kind of constitutes, like, what is a ceremony or what is a studio versus what is, a boutique kind of agency?
Well, so I think we can just make this up. It's our podcast. We can say whatever we want. So
this is the be all end all definition.
Yeah. It's not like we found this in a dictionary, but we were talking through, like, how do we define a studio? Like, and, before we define that, I was going to say, I don't define like what a lot of people associate with a studio as a studio. This definition, I feel like, excludes some of those places that maybe are just functioning. Like, you'll probably mention later, booking agencies. Basically, they just book people, hire random contractors and random editor contractors. They never touch it. So for me, what a studio is they have multiple people involved that aren't related, probably. Typically, like, I don't think you're a studio just because if you and your wife or you and your husband make films together. You could just be, artists. But I think probably minimum 3 people. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest determiner is you're booking multiple weddings in a day consistently as a, like, practice.
Yeah.
And then I also...
Because if it was just 2 of you, you're probably not going to be doing 2 weddings in a single day. You're probably going to be teaming up and doing... Maybe in a pinch you do. Wedding. But, together.
And maybe you have associates from time to time.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, oh, COVID wedding, I have to reschedule. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, like, this is our business model. We book multiple weddings in a day. That's our practice. And then I also think multiple roles within the studio. Like, there are people who specialize in certain things. Maybe they could do other things, but at least in terms of their day-to-day jobs. And I think one little, like, side wrinkle with studios is typically studios tend to have business hours. Like you're open at this time, you close at this time, right? You have to provide a physical location.
Sure.
That isn't your bedroom, something that someone who isn't related to you could walk into and not be like, oh, you're naked. Like, like that's kind of what we're talking about it's like, it's a workplace, and you make content. For us, the other wrinkle for our studio definition is you actually make something. Like, you have, like, you make the product. Like, they shoot the product, you edit the product. Doesn't mean you do every single one, but in general, you're not just outsourcing every single part of the creation of your film to someone else.
Yeah, and that's probably the chief differentiator between what we would consider like a studio, which is like, I'm with you. Like, I think a studio, when I hear that, it's like a place where things are made, where things are created. Usually it's full of creatives, versus a person that might call themselves, oh, we're a studio, when they're really, like you said, a booking agency, when they're literally like sitting on their flat in, like, Indo surfing in the morning, getting up, reading some emails, and just booking
I remember
videographers,
talking to a
booking
guy.
editors, and just not having a single thing to do with what the end product looks like. Maybe they're like, hey, I have one editor, and I like what they did, and I just hired editors around them and made them the boss, and they're I just don't touch it. I just book, and that's a great business model.
I'm not gonna. I probably, as a creative, don't like it.
Right. I don't either. I wouldn't want to run that business, but in terms of like
I might
making money,
enjoy it. I might like running it. It kind of depends, but I definitely don't think it's the same.
right.
No matter we could debate whether those should or shouldn't exist. And the only thing I always try to remind people when they're like George Streets or the companies like that,
Copper Stallion.
NST Film, Copper Stallion, of course,
yeah,
NST,
classic. Yeah.
these companies that do kind of what we're describing is I always want to remind people that's the first person that gave you an opportunity though.
Yeah.
So like you might never have been able to be a wedding filmmaker if no one ever was willing to accept that you were terrible and pay you to do it.
A lot of those companies, by the way, a majority of their staff, which when you have a booking agency like that, a majority of their staff are just marketers.
Marketing and sales. That's all
Marketing
they have on
and
staff.
sales. That's all their staff is. And people
You talk
that
to
are
the
just-
person who owns it and they don't know the first thing about editing
No,
or filming.
it's like, yeah, when you're using this camera, they literally have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They just got a bachelor's degree from, Rutgers, and they're just like, yeah, I have this business.
Well, there's a bunch of people
and
running-
I have 3 other businesses too. And
where is there an inactive workforce waiting for someone to give them a job?
Yeah,
It's like filmmakers. They're all sitting around. They're like, please give me a job. So regardless, we're not talking about that because we don't know how to run it. We've never run it.
Yep.
You can have any opinion you want about that. What we run is a real studio that creates product in-house. And so kind of, there's a lot of, I think, benefits to this. There's some downsides. I think the benefit is it lets you make more money. That's the biggest benefit. I think, the benefits of culture, right, Jared? Like you're working with people. That's a lot of fun. And
Right.
also, I think it helps you be more creative.
Right. I think touching on your first point, making more money, let's circle back on that because I like that topic. I think a lot of people, in the wedding industry, maybe you've been in the industry for a while and you're making money. You're kind of at the climax of like what you can actually do in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
And-
I had
and
this
it's not
conversation
even-
with someone recently.
And it's not even really your fault.
Yeah.
It's the industry. Like there's only a certain number of people that are willing to book a wedding filmmaker for $5,000, for $7,000, for $10,000, for $20,000. There's a limited number there. And I don't care what anyone says. You're not going to convince someone who's like, yeah, I didn't even know how much this costs. We were expecting to spend like $2,000 to $3,000. You're not going to get that person to spend $10,000. I'm sorry.
And if you do, it's like you're kind of a psycho. because
You're
it's like,
catching the freaking white whale when you do that. Like, congratulations, you did it one time.
Yeah.
For 1 year, it's not sustainable. So
That's like saying, like with a 3-point shooter, like, do you know you could shoot that from the other side of the court, though? This one guy did it.
yeah, there's one guy. Yeah, exactly. And so I think when we're talking about money, when we're talking about wanting to make more of it, I think the easiest way to do it, I mean, I don't want to say easy because it's not easy, but the way that makes the most sense
Predictable, dependable.
and scalable.
Yes.
Right? Scalable is what we're talking about here, is running a studio. And so that's one reason why I don't know. What do you think when we first started like having a studio? Did we always intend to have a studio? What were
No
our
way.
thoughts when we first kind of started out?
Well, probably in a sense, yes.
Yeah.
Like we always, because we really wanted to do a lot of commercial work when we first started out. So we always had hired people to help us
Yeah.
on sets and things like that. So for us, like having a couple people who would work with us consistently is always something we wanted.
Yeah.
I
But
think
like when we were even just like picking the name Stop Go Love, like our first
we
kind of
definitely
business.
wanted at least me and you to be able to do things apart, but I don't think we had any understanding of what we would have now.
Yeah.
So I think
It did make it easy not having it be like Jared and Jason Productions.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think in a sense, like it was part of the plan, but not this. Like I remember having a conversation years ago. We used to have another business partner, and he had certain things he wanted to invest in our business, and we were talking through. And I remember all of us kind of like reaching a conclusion in a meeting that I was like, well, we kind of have done as much as we can really do. Like, we can't do any more weddings. And it was, I think we were like 100.
Yeah.
And we're doing much more than double that now. And I was just wrong. But so I think what we are now, we would have never conceived of. But I do think we always wanted to like have, based on our definition today, a studio. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think when we first had our first, essentially an associate join the team, we were like, this could work. Like, maybe we could have him shoot his own and you and I could shoot our own. We could do 3 in a day. Like, we'll just maybe rent some equipment, lose some around the edges in terms of money. But I think it can work. And we just have to find the right people. Oh, man, finding the right people is going to be so hard to do. Like, we found this guy. I feel like it was, a rare occurrence that we could actually find someone who's matches our values and, we can train to be somewhat skilled.
That one person has created like 8, though.
Right. And out of that one person, we were able to be like, well, what were we really looking for with this person? Wow, he sent us another person who's actually really a nice person and has our values too. Maybe we could train him. Oh, he likes to work hard. Wow, he's really impressing. And we're like, after like the second, third, fourth person, we were like, this is scalable. Like, you can bring people on who can become a part of your team and have the same kind of vision.
Yeah, it's a classic slow hire, quick fire too. You start learning like who works and doesn't work. But yeah, I feel like pretty early on if we didn't plan on what we have now, we did think like, wouldn't it be great if we could do X, like a lot more weddings?
Yeah.
That was pretty early on. Wouldn't it be great if we had more team and, all this? Like, for us, it was just a matter of, well, how much demand actually is there?
Yeah.
And we charge, back when we did 100 weddings, we charged like $2,000 less than we do now at 240.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wouldn't have ever imagined it. And I think
it's like you raise prices and the demand increases. It's like,
well, when people talk about this stuff, I'm always like, hey, look, I'm not saying we're the best wedding filmmakers or we know everything or whatever, but I do think we have the most data.
We do have a lot of data.
From soup to nuts, right? From sales to how to make people happy, to boots on the ground shooting, to editing, to all the things, because we do everything. And I will say, like, if you think people need you to show up and do this to do a good job, you're wrong. And I have enough data to tell you, like, you can do a great job with other people. Clients will be happy. If you're wondering if you should consider going this direction, I mean, so some of the negatives are why you might not want to go in this direction. And so we want to talk a little bit about what goes into a week. And in the context of that, you'll see some of the things that are negative, because it really comes down to, if you want to do what we do, you have to be organized. You have to be uncompromising in certain areas, but very compromising in other areas. And you really, really, really have to. I was telling you before this, like, the amount of things we just say, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't do that. Like, we were talking about, like, could we ever make a film consistently as good as some of the best out there? And we're like, I don't know. Like, we have to say no to a lot of things in order to do what we do. You have to, like, for it to be quality, you have to be very focused on what you are trying to do.
Well, and for us, the conversation that we probably have internally is like, if we wanted to raise our quality, that means we would be making less money. Like, we would have to be like, hey, if we want this to be a higher quality,
it's even quality, like subjective quality.
Right.
It's like,
right. Like, instead of doing like 3 weddings in a single day, we would have to bring people into, one wedding, so we can do less weddings on one day. But then also maybe we're shooting for like 3 or 4 days with more people. And so it's just like,
well, it's something
it's
as
less
simple
of a
as,
money
like,
maker.
when we think about our ceremony coverage, we say, okay, 3 cameras, because we think through, we need 8 kits that day.
Yeah.
That's an extra 8 cameras if you did 4 cameras.
Yeah.
And in my perfect coverage, I'm doing 5 cameras. So that's an extra 16 cameras.
Right.
that we would have to do to cover it that way.
Yep.
It also means you need more people setting it up. You need more intentionality. There's more things that can go wrong. Like those are the negatives, I think, with the studio. If you have a hard time like either being creative with how you do your coverage or compromising anything, it might be a struggle. But I think mostly it's positive. So let's talk about a week.
Sure.
So this week, Jared, what are we doing?
So this week,
Do we want to start from Monday when we
Beginning of-
drop our gear off, or do we want to just talk
Sure.
about what we're going to shoot?
sure. Yeah. So
Let's start with the weekend. Let's do it that way, and then we'll go into next week.
okay.
Let's do it that way.
This upcoming weekend, we have 9 weddings. We have 3 that have rehearsal coverage the night
So
before.
they're multi-day.
Multiple day, so at least 2 day. And 2 of them are 3 days. The weddings that we have here, I'll look at them right now. Where are we? So we're based in New England. So we are in Cape Cod, Plymouth, Mass, Connecticut, Newport, Rhode Island, Boston, Boylston, Mass, Cape Cod again, Providence, Rhode Island, Aspen, Colorado. So you and I are going to Aspen. So we're taking off on Thursday. So that's our 9 weddings all over New England, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Colorado for that one. So between all those, like,
How many kits do we have in house?
so that's only 5 kits right there. Actually, there'll be 6 kits because we're going to be using a Sony kit for our
We
Aspen
own
wedding.
5 kits internally,
We own 5 kits for Stop Go Love, 2 for Merryman.
so we can do 7 in a day
We
without
can do
any
7
rentals.
in a day. It's ideal. 5 Stop Go Love, 2 Merryman.
Our Merriment weddings, we send out a more stripped down kit.
Yep. And if we go over that, that just means we have to rent gear, which we can go over that because we have the team to be able to do it. It's just a matter of how much gear do
You're
we
losing
have.
margin on
Yep.
it.
Yep. So if we take more than that, we're just losing margin, like you said, which is still probably worth it to us, especially if it's like a planner that loves us and they're like, we're desperate. We have someone like they bailed out that we can be like, we can take it, just to help you and
We had
create
a
good rapport.
planner 2 weeks ago, and the couple didn't want to do it, but she's like, "Oh, and can you guys come on the 25th? I really want them to get video."
Yeah.
It was 2 weeks later.
Yep.
And we're like, "Yeah, we could do that." And she's a planner that we really love. She's very high-ended locally speaking, probably even nationally, I guess, in the sense that how much she charges. And it's like, I'm going to say yes to that person.
Yep.
And that's what we want to do.
Yeah. So on the weekend, when we are doing weddings like this, there's going to be a lot of like transfer. Like we have weddings Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's going to be some transfer of gear from, one shooter to the other. Sometimes, most of the times, probably not as much. Sometimes we have to work it out that way. 9 weddings for us is a reasonable weekend, actually. Like we've done recently, like 12 weddings in a weekend, which is just insane. So me, logistically, I'm organizing a lot of that ahead of time. Like Monday, I'm going through like, okay, this is our roadmap for the week. And I'm texting the whole team like, hey, assistant, when you come back from this wedding, drop off the kit at the office. You're going to charge batteries overnight. So the next day, the lead shooter can show up and they're fully charged, ready to go kind of thing. So there's a lot of organization there.
Or literally something like sending an extra set of batteries in a separate case.
Right. So, yeah, like a battery kit that is already pre-charged that, the lead shooter is going into the
Separate
day
set of cards.
separate set of cards, the whole deal. So the weekend is fairly organized. The gear all comes back on Monday morning, 9:00. And we are just taking all the kits out of a Pelican kit, putting it into an organized storage bin. What are those things called? Those things are awesome.
Oh, I
We
wish
we
they were my
plug them.
sponsor. On
I
my
know.
channel.
They're awesome.
I think Sidious case. No, someday we'll talk about them. But they're these great cases, and each case holds an entire weekend's
right.
kit.
So 3 cameras, 3 lenses, like our hold fast, all the audio kits, all the gear. So it's just, we put it all in there and we actually just got a piece of software, Check Room, which is another project that I have going on, which essentially allows us to check everything in, check everything out, and make sure like, hey, if something's broken, it's getting pulled out of the kit. I can see it on a spreadsheet. Like, hey, this needs to be worked on. We're down 1 kit, so this next weekend we have to rent. It just allows me a little bit of like an equipment roadmap. So all that equipment comes in, it gets organized. All the cards are getting dumped and uploaded
Jared.
onto the cloud.
Ingested.
Sorry, we have the ingest station.
We actually no, like this is one important thing. People are like, what do you do about your cards? I'm like, we just buy lots and lots of them because we don't want anyone who's not on staff touching cards.
Yeah.
We want them to take it right from the camera, and like it's like a one move, like
Yeah.
straight from the camera, straight into the card holder.
Yep.
Like I would never want someone ingesting footage. So we have an entire computer in our office exclusively for ingesting. Like
Monday
weddings.
morning, Travis or Victoria is just doing all the ingest.
It probably
They're the only
takes
person touching cards.
10 hours or 8 to 10
Probably.
hours to ingest all our weddings.
Yep.
From a
They're
weekend
working on
like
it all day while they're in between projects, and they're just one person though. So cards go there. Batteries are getting on the charger Monday. We're putting together the next weekend's plan on Monday. So hey, this is who's getting what kit. I actually have all of our kits assigned to our staff members so that their holdfasts fit right. This is a new thing that I've been making sure to do. You hate holdfasts.
I won't
but,
use my hold.
you refuse.
I hate those hold fasts.
Yeah. Oh, they're the best.
But everyone loves them.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's weird. It's like very polarizing because some people on the team would be like, Jared makes me use this hold fast. I hate it. And then a lot of people are like, I love the hold
Yeah.
fast. And it's like,
Well, the people that have hated them, except for you, like Richie is like a bigger dude. He's swole. And he's like, I hate those things. I was like, have you adjusted it to make it fit you? He was like, no, how do you do that?
that's not why I hate it.
And then I put it on him. He was like, oh, this feels really good. I was like, yeah, no shit.
I don't like it because I don't like where it puts my back.
Yeah, sure.
I like it here. I don't want it on my back.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyways, hold fast, camera strap. It's great. And so just organizing Monday morning. But that's what it takes. Like that's taking a person, whether it's me or another person. Right now it's me because we're getting into this new.
Normally we have a
closet.
person, that's their job. It's just
That's their job. Yeah.
tearing down equipment, getting equipment repaired, packing up the equipment for next week. It's probably minimum 3 days of work every week.
It's a lot, and the check room system will make things faster for us. But yeah, and that's just little things. Like I was telling Nick, is a kid. How old is he? 19, 20 maybe. So we're training him up. We're bringing him up. This is all the part of the studio process, right? We're bringing him on and giving him a lot of responsibility. Like, hey, you're going to be equipment managing. You're going to be managing this equipment. This is really important. Like little things. Like I was showing him one thing, and I was like, look, if there's a little, we have little Manfrotto air cushion stands, right? 9 foot and 7 foot. And, if you unscrew the top, I don't know what you call them. They're like
Spigot?
Is it a spigot? Is that
Well,
what
if
it
it's
is?
two-sided, it's spigot.
No. The one-sided ones. So the ones that just
The
screw
reducer?
the reducer, the 1/8 inch that go on the 1/4 inch. I was like, if you don't have an 1/8 inch on here, and someone is like ahead of time planning on going to a church, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna raise up my microphone in front of a speaker because the church
Yeah,
isn't
and
gonna
then
allow
the
me
quarter
to-
20 adapter's
and then
not on it.
and then the quarter is on there, and you can't. Like it screws up your whole game plan. And then what happens if we don't get audio? That's good. Maybe it's super echoey because we planned for one thing. It should have been there. It's just like that little thing that costs you $2 could cost you $1,000 because a couple could be like, why does our audio sound like shit?
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, so it's just like a little thing. So it's like important getting all this figured out. And like, those are the little things that are actually like super hard. When you have a studio, when it's just you, you're like, oh, I have this thing. You know everything about your equipment. When you have 8 kits next door, and like little things happen, like the shooters aren't going to tell us what happens. We have to review every piece of gear, make sure all the batteries, like AAAs, AAs, that we're not low on anything. Everything is stocked every single week. So
well,
like you said,
literally,
it's
if
3
we're not
3 days
doing
worth of
this,
work.
if we're not doing this on a Monday,
Yep.
like last week. Actually, this will make it. If you're listening to this, I want to do a filmmaker brag. I shot an entire wedding on 10% gimbal last week.
Yes.
I got a gimbal. It was broken. Didn't really realize it.
Yep.
Because I charged it overnight, and then I look, and then nothing had charged. So I kept plugging it in. I'm plugging it in my car.
Yep.
It wouldn't charge. So I really start looking, and I realized that the USB input snapped.
Yep.
And it's just wiggling, and it won't charge. So I literally just pulled it out on like throughout the day on my like 12 gimbal shots I really wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't think you'll notice it in the film.
Yeah.
Like, I shot them walking, I shot the cake, I
Right.
shot the room, I did all the things. But I shot on Timbers and gimbal.
Right.
But then I go, do I need to buy a gimbal?
Yeah.
Because it's not just a matter of like, oh, we can get that fixed. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
well, I need it next weekend.
Yeah.
That's the type of things that is I would say, particular to a studio like ours is like, if any piece of gear, the week before we had a 7200 break.
Yeah.
Like, if any piece of gear gets broken,
Yeah.
you are counting on that for the next weekend to
Yep.
do your coverage. And so, like, you have to be so organized.
Yep.
And we are pretty organized.
I have a 50 to 140 lens that we sent to Fuji to get repaired. And I'm calling them every single day. Hey, is that our camera? When did you send this out? What's the status of it? Is it going to be here on time? Like, I need it on Friday. Is it going to be here on time? Calling them every single day. Because if not, then I have to run to the rental store. We're very lucky. Actually, two of the biggest camera rental houses are within an hour of our studio in Massachusetts.
Borrow Lenses
Borrow
and
Lenses
Lens Pro to Go.
and Lens Pro to Go are both based like within an hour of our studio. So we just run over to them, we wave to them, and
we have
pick up
Rule.
stuff in person. And Rule if you need to. They're kind of more up end or high end than real production, I would say. But anyways, that's our system. And then, probably like Tuesday, Wednesday, that's when we're starting to repack all the gear and just get everything in place.
We haven't even talked about editing.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, there's that too.
Yeah. like we do all the editing in-house. We did so I consider this in-house because she's an employee. We did just hire someone in the Philippines full-time to help with
Merriment.
our Merriment edits, which is our high access product volume, people would call it. Like, we want to design that in a more volume, like even more scale.
Merriment is a scalable.
We want it to be way even more scalable than Stop Go Love.
Yep.
So that's our goal with that. And you really need to bring costs down.
Yep.
And the way to do that is overseas people. But she comes to our meetings.
Yep.
She's on the team. She's in the Slack channel. Like, we treat her like an employee. Hold her to the same standard.
Yep.
All that stuff. But we have, I think right now, 11 stations, if you include the laptops. 3 Mac Studios, 1 Mac Pro, the big tower, probably 1 Mac Mini, and then probably 4 or 5 iMacs, maybe 6. Can't remember. We have people, usually there's 4 to 5 people working in a given day. And that's the other thing, like managing those projects. We have Asana. And so we have a Monday morning editing meeting at 10 a.m. every Monday. We go through the sprint, which is we have 1 week sprints. Every week we're restocking the board, saying in Asana, like, here's all the things we're working on. And everyone is expected to complete every task that they put on the board. Whether it be, we have a lead editor who's kind of supervising the team inside, and then we have a range of employees and then, contractors who are learning, junior editors who are coming in and helping with ingesting, multicam edits, culling, things like that. And so that's just happening all week. And so it never stops. Like, in order to keep the velocity going, you got to just keep going. But it's much more like a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, it's a 9-to-5 job. I would say something that is unique about a studio is even though it's a 9-to-5 job, we're still working 7 days a week.
Oh yes.
Like
well, and as owners, maybe we don't have that.
Well, as owners and shooters, like, we're shooting Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have our teams going out, but then Monday through Friday, like, we're working. The ball is being pushed forward every single day of the year. Like, we're pushing the ball forward, which is different. And sometimes if you get in a rut personally, you have the other team to, like, kind of pick you up. It's like stuff is still happening. Even if you're like, I'm in a creative rut. I think some people probably looked at the end of their week and they're like, I didn't get anything done all week. Like, it was all consultations, and therefore I didn't get any editing work done.
We didn't even mention that we have Catherine.
Yeah, Catherine, our office admin, she is the best.
She runs your schedule
She changed
for
my life.
Jared.
Yeah.
Helps us with client communication.
I have days I don't even have to look at my email anymore, which is just incredible.
Yeah.
It's so freeing. Like, and like, one of the main reasons, like, I love the studio thing is it really does give you your life back while allowing you to focus on the things that you want to focus on. And when you have a team member who's like Catherine, who's just like, I don't like, she knew, one of the reasons why we brought her on is because she knew photography and knew kind of this world. She had been involved in this world. She wanted to kind of do some photo. Now she's like, I don't want to do any photo. I just love doing this. And like, you know, it allows her to family plan and do some things that are important to her personally. And you know, live the life that she wants to live. She's like, I know about this stuff, but it's like, I love my job. And I'm like, good, because I do not love that part of the job. Like, I want to talk to people. I want to do creative stuff. I want to organize. I want to, you know, do wedding film school and, you know, just do more of the things that we want to do, which I think, you know, a studio allows you to do, is have a little bit more freedom.
Yeah. So a couple other things about our given week. You know, the other thing, this is not having to do with work, but just, it is work, I guess. But like, we're in the office together almost every day, these people, and like everything from like, hey, did you see this funny thing? And like creating office jokes, and oh, we're going to have pizza on Friday, and like just all the things that come
Rating the hottest grooms of the year
yes,
award.
we do that. We at one point had a wall.
Yeah.
Which we forgot about that.
Yeah, we haven't started that this year. Yeah.
We want to make a calendar called the Hot Grooms of Stop Go Love. And then
Yes.
I think it'd be an hysterical gift to give brides when they sign with us.
Yeah.
It's send them the hot grooms.
Be like, hey, your husband won hottest groom of the year.
Send them a calendar. It'd be so funny.
That'd be wicked funny.
But somehow I'm sure that's offensive. So.
Yeah. But we also have a calendar for the best personalities too. So yeah.
The most
It evens itself
intersectional,
out. Yeah.
the most intersectional groom of the year.
Yes. Yes.
But you know, I think culture is a big thing that you get. Even something like you were talking about codex, like what should we shoot on, and you know that like we talked about. We've shot on 3 different color profiles this year. You know, on purpose. Like, hey, I'm going to try this. Let's see how this looks. Like because we have a big sample size, we can do a lot of different things. And also because you have people to bounce things off. Like, hey, well, do you like that? Are you into that? And I don't know. I felt whatever about it. And like, they'll be like, oh, I like it. Or no, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like decisions can be made actually a lot faster with other people than by yourself. And we get to see that. That's like a week-to-week thing is we're making decisions, we're evaluating. And I think in all of this, we were talking about the booking agency thing versus like a studio. We are never, ever taking our hands off the product.
Right.
And I feel like whether it be just like I can go and focus on the thing I want to focus on with the product, like the color. I can look at the color on 5-6 films in different lighting conditions and start evaluating you know, skin tones and exposure decisions. And like, I can just focus on one part of the product that I want to make better instead of always having to look at everything and like, okay, how did I do on this wedding? And then how did I do on this wedding? And then how did I do in this wedding? I feel like you can get stuck in the moment. You can be a prisoner of the moment when you don't have a lot of things. But when you're kind of like aloof, like I've looked at 25 different weddings in the last 3 weeks for our brand, and walked away with some conclusions on shooting and some conclusions on exposure decisions and all kinds of things that I could have never done if I just took a wedding one at a time and started working on it.
Caleb is just in there trying to crank out the weddings. He has his deadlines and is like, you know, doing a really great job, I might add. But when you just have like a brief exposure to 25 different weddings, you're able to be like, these are a little bit different here and there. We need to tighten up. Like, he's not going to have that input that you would have.
No.
Yeah.
No. And so it's just that's a unique benefit. But at the end of the day, too, it's like I'm still working on the product.
Yep.
I'm still touching it.
Yep. I'm
looking at it just like you are, where, you know, we're having to face the clients when we send it to them and hear that if they liked it or didn't like it. Like, I think like if you want to keep quality, you can't just ever outsource everything about what you're doing.
And you need an opinion. Like the thing about these booking agencies is like they're not going to have an opinion. They're going to be like, looks good to me. Send it out.
Well,
like, it's better than I could do. Send it out.
I think this is a big distinction
Yeah.
for us is like I kind of care what the client thinks, but I care much more what I think.
Sure.
And I think that's all artists, right? It's like I heard a cook on like a Iron Chef the other day. He was like the new season, which is super weird, by the way. Like the original was like hokey.
Is Gordon Ramsay on it?
Yeah, no. Alton Brown is.
Alton Brown?
Gordon Ramsay was never on.
Iron Chef?
You're thinking Kitchen Nightmares.
Oh, no, Kitchen Nightmare was the one that he was on. He was on like an Iron Chef.
It wasn't Iron Chef, though. It was a different one. It was
Hell's Kitchen.
No, Top Chef.
No, Gordon Ramsay was on Hell's Kitchen.
He was on Hell's Kitchen, and he was on some other one.
Which was the
with
better
the
one.
3 different ones.
Yeah.
No, Iron Chef is their OG, man.
Really?
Yeah, it's the best one.
Yeah.
But it was like the 2 best chefs. It's like a totally different type of show.
Okay.
So, but I was watching it, and this chef is facing, and he's this like big time chef, and he's like, I don't cook for anyone else. I cook for my taste.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if I like it, that's all that matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, and I have good taste.
Yeah.
You know, and like I feel like that's a lot of artists.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is what it means to be an artist. Is like I want people to like it, but more than anything, I need to like it.
Mm-hmm.
Like in order to stand behind what I'm sending out. And I think that is really, if you're an artist, most of us in reality, that's how we operate. Like, do I like it? Do I think it? Not is it my favorite thing in the world, but like, do I stand behind it? Am I embarrassed by it?
Mm-hmm.
Does it make me feel like, am I proud of it?
Sure.
And I think
there are multiple ways to be proud of something, though.
Sure. But I don't think we are still doing that, is what I'm saying. We still are like considering, do we like it?
Right.
Like when we watch a film, we're like, did I like that?
Right.
Not so much like, will the client like it? Because the booking agencies pretty much, as long as the client doesn't complain,
Yep.
they're happy if all their films look totally different,
Yeah.
that aren't cool at all.
I think you're right. Sometimes I'll watch our films and I'll get emotional watching them. I'm like, that is so good. Like, I love these people. Like, I feel really good about them. Like, I'm really happy we're able to, like, be a part of this. And I still, like, authentically feel that way about some of our films.
Or
not,
just
not
like,
all of our films, but the certain ones I really lean into. I'm like, man, I feel so good that we were able to be a part of that. And it's rewarding.
I was watching a film the other day that something happened the day of with some lights. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this film sucks. I hate this film now.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not covered correctly. Why do we cover it like this?
Yeah.
It looks bad. I'm annoyed.
Yeah.
Like, the couple is not going to complain. So if you're basing it solely on the couple, you will let a lot of things slip.
That film turned out being pretty good, right?
Not in my opinion.
Really?
But the couple is going to be fine with it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like on one hand, I know like we did our job. Mm-hmm. But on another hand, not good enough. Mm-hmm. Don't let it happen again.
Yeah.
And I don't care if every couple in the world lets me get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm doing. Why I'm doing, like, we're not going to do that.
Yep.
Because it's not, I don't like it.
Yeah.
It looks bad to me and I'm the boss.
Sure.
And it's like, that's what I mean is like, you still need to be an artist. Mm-hmm. You still need to have an opinion, like you said before, about what you're creating as a studio. And as a brand, you have to have a concept that you're going for. Like and I feel like that is a big distinction.
Sure.
And we're much more, I think, like solopreneur, artist, boutique kind of, creators than I think people realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say it's hard. It is hard getting to that point. There's a lot of things that you have to deal with as opposed to just when you're a solopreneur, kind of doing everything and everything's just in your head. I would say the main thing that differentiates us from that person is just we have to have another layer of communication. Like there's this web of communication that we have to have. And unfortunately, understanding that you have to have that layers of communication comes from failing at communicating a million times beforehand. Yeah. And it's just learning from experience. And a lot of people don't want to deal with that. They see it as like, how many times have you had or seen a photographer or a filmmaker be like, I had the second shooter one time. I hated them. They didn't focus right. Our buddy Rich Ferry had one guy had second shoot with him. He was like, he doesn't know how to focus.
He couldn't roll focus of a bride walking down the aisle.
Bride walking down the aisle. Cut.
He was
done
like pumping
forever.
focus.
And it's like, for me, I'm like, yeah, that sucks. But I just cut to my camera because mine was good. Yeah. And then I told him, hey, get better at this area next time. No big deal because I was able to use my shot. Thank goodness I'm good. But and then the next time he works on it, he gets a little bit better. And then the next time he gets a little bit better. And then after 10, 12, 15, 20, 30 weddings, he's pretty good. Like you're just, it's that extra step of just communicating with that person of like, hey man, I saw your work. It was good. You can do better. Like, let's go.
Do you think people, I think there's a lot of reasons people don't have even like MIDI studios. Like, I mean, like,
Yeah.
but I think one of the biggest ones is probably they're just control freaks and they don't trust anyone.
Yep.
So what would you say to people who are like looking and saying, no one could do what I do? No one could do it like I do it. I don't trust anyone to do it.
Well, first of all, it's not true because there are people that, unless you're the very best person in the world, which
is
statistics
actually
are
only
against you for that.
Probably you're only the best person in the world too for like a month, and then you decrease in quality or someone else surpasses you.
And also, what does that even mean? But
cares?
that's a different discussion. But also, there are a million people that are really good wedding filmmakers out there. Well, maybe not a million, but there's a lot of really great wedding filmmakers.
And there's a lot of potential in a lot of people.
And they all started somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so to say that is, I think, discounting people in general. Yeah, so I would say you only can try, and at first, yeah, you're the only person who's going to be able to produce what you produce, but give it time. And
I always
work
think
towards it.
the funny thing about it is like there's a criticism of other people like within there of like, but not a criticism of yourself of being a crappy leader. It's like, okay, well, you're like, yeah, those people aren't as good as shooters, but like you suck at, you're a bad teacher.
Yeah.
So
I would say,
everyone could get better here.
good leadership allows you to have a higher ceiling, right? And that's kind of like fundamentally what we're talking about, and the reason why we took the direction of having a studio is because we were like, I think we're willing to take on this challenge, and because I do think it's rewarding, and I think it's fun, and I think it allows us to just be able to do something like wedding film school, like be able to do something like we were talking the other day. We're like, should we start a lighting company? Yeah, we should. No, we shouldn't. Maybe. I don't know. How would we? Like, we can have even these conversations about like, should we invest a bunch of money in this new thing? That's fun to me. Like, and
I love my little vibe board.
well, yeah. It allows us to be challenged, and I think that's something that a lot of creatives struggle with for a while, because they're like, nothing's challenging me anymore, therefore I'm not interested, therefore I want to move on to commercial work, or I'm burnt out on weddings because they're not interesting to me anymore. It's like, yeah.
I don't believe most people when they say they're burnt out.
I think they might just be bored.
They're just bored.
Right.
Most people are bored.
Yeah.
And some of that is, suck it up. It's a job.
Yeah.
Like it's a very childish notion that everything should be exciting.
Well, and I think what's the alternative to like people being bored in the wedding industry creating wedding films? It's like, I need to create a better wedding film.
Or like,
and how do I do that?
Or I have to work with couples that inspire me. It's like,
well, when you are always doing that, like most of the time you're just banging your head against the wall, because it's like, oh, I didn't get the right couple this time, and now I have to wait until a whole nother year till I can get the next best couple. And it's like, a lot of things are just out of your control.
I think I've done 7 weddings so far this year, Jared.
Okay.
One of them I liked.
Sure.
Not because a lot of the people were wonderful. One of them I would consider to be like that type of wedding that I was like, yes, all the pieces came together.
Yeah.
It was fun. I felt like I got everything I wanted. The couple had a certain look.
Yep.
I can market it.
Yep.
I can use it to teach, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
The rest were just for various reasons not perfect, not exactly what I would want. And the couple is going to love them. We're going to make really quality films. There's nothing that I would ever, like, I wouldn't want them to think that I think, oh, your wedding is less than, or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But definitely it would be the type of thing where it's like, oh, I always hear people say like, I'm just tired of weddings that are like these ballroom weddings or like barn weddings. And then they're like, I'm like, where do you live? Well, I live in Oklahoma. What do you have a lot of? Oh, we just have all these barn weddings. that sounds like it'd be easy to book all those.
Yeah.
You should do that. Like you should book a lot of these weddings. And it's like, there's a little truth to it that you gotta like show what you want to grow. And definitely you might be locking yourself into a certain price point I get all that stuff. But there's also a truth that's like, you gotta make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like a studio allows you to not have to calculate a lot of those decisions as much.
Mm-hmm.
We have maybe 1 or 2 locations that we look at and go, we don't want to shoot these.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a studio like ours, you can be like, we're shooting like 10 weddings this weekend. 7 of them are just money in the bank. And 3 of them could be really special.
Yep.
And it's like, I think that's an awesome benefit of having a studio is we can much more curate our brand and how we want to be perceived because we have so many opportunities to just show what we want to grow.
Yep.
Versus like you have 20 weddings. If you have 20 weddings and like in my ratio, like I shot 7 and only 1 of them is something I'd want to show.
Yeah.
If that happened 3 times throughout the year, I'd only have 3 weddings to release. If I did 21 weddings, that might be devastating.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and I think that's great. That's a great benefit.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. So we've talked about like what makes a wedding studio create a quality product. You know, we've talked a little bit about like just
Kind of how
working hard.
we do it, at least.
Yeah, like putting your nose to the grindstone and just like doing it. We've talked a little bit about, just being true to your values and like being like, no, this is what I want to produce, regardless of if a couple's okay with it. What are some other things that you think really goes into creating quality while you're also producing quantity?
I mean, I think just consistency with your systems is most important.
Yep.
Accessibility of your systems, like everything has to be down to the level of the person who is going to be doing the work. So if they don't know the next step, like they have to feel released to start and finish the job. Right. So our culling process, for instance, is like we train people with no experience in an NLE to use it. So we give them we only teach them 4 parts about the platform. We say, go on here, do this and this and this. And when they're done, they're like, I did it. I completed my task. I'm good at culling.
Yep.
They don't go, I'm good at editing. We just make everything down to simple, repeatable steps that anyone can succeed at. And we talk about it a lot. Easy wins. Give people wins. So I think that's a big one. I think inspect what you expect. It's just like you have to. There's a thing in production of products they call in app development and a lot of different things called thin slicing, which is like poke in randomly, grab a thin slice of every little part of your process and evaluate it. Like Merriman Films, I want to not outsource, but I want it produced by our Filipino team. But I am never going to let them edit all the films. I'm going to make sure there's a percentage of our films that are always edited by our A team.
Yep.
Because I want to keep my head in the product, make sure we have a vision for the product at all times. I also want us looking at their work.
Yep.
So I think it's like inspecting what you're doing.
You can't have them create the template.
No, and you can't you can't take your eye off the ball.
Yep.
Like you got to keep looking. And really, really actually give a crap about how it turns out. I think the other thing is, we talk about a lot of filmmakers that are really good, and we talk about them because that's how we measure ourselves. And I feel like you need to, if you're gonna do something that is scalable, that is can maybe veer towards impersonal, maybe less quality, you have to have an idea of what you're up against and what does the market expect. And when people say oh, I don't watch anyone else's work, it's the weirdest brag, by the way, Jared. It's like, oh wow, you're awesome, you're a self-made man, so cool. Every time I watch that person's work, I'm like, you should probably watch some more people's work. Because your work actually is derivative and boring and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
We watch a lot of other people's work because we want our work to stand up. We know I'm not competing in my mind with George Street. Like, and this is, we talk about him a lot on the show. We talked about him before. He actually sent me a little picture of like us talking about him. Lindsey Conklin. But like Lindsey is in our market, and people choose us or LaRev. They're not choosing us or George Street. And so that's partially because we're watching LaRev and we're like, we have to compete. We have to compete on the market with other people. If we want to be considered to be a certain quality and you charge a certain price, you better make sure that the people who are charging more or similar to you are not producing something way better than you.
Yeah. I did it today. We have a local competitor I was like, that we lost out to. And I was like, why? Why would I lose out to them? Like last I checked, like our work was, to me, our work is a lot better than them. And I watched their films. I was like, yeah, we're still a lot better than them. And how much are they charging? They're charging more than us. We're definitely raking up way more work than they are. And like, I was like, I actually emailed the planner. I was like, hey, tell me a little bit more about this, because the decision obviously isn't the work. The decision is always obviously somewhere else along the way. So are they like actually cheaper than, like, what's the deal? I needed to find out. But
What do they say?
they haven't responded. It was literally today,
Okay.
like this morning. I sent
That's
that email.
fascinating.
And again, I already established that I don't look at my emails every day. So yeah.
Yeah, but the point is only to say, like, we keep our quality by
Yes.
measuring ourselves against our competitors.
Yeah.
And being a very, very like identifying who these people are. Like like Lindsay's not really our competitor. He's national brand and all these things. But you know, in Newport, he's my competitor.
Sure.
He books weddings in the exact same venues we do. On the Cape, they're our competitor. Like this weekend, Joey from 31 Films is messaging me. He's in Martha's Vineyard. So now I'm looking at 31 Films. I want to look at what planner was he working with
Yep.
this weekend. That's my neck of the woods. Why do they pick him and not us?
Yep.
Given there are plenty of times where I'm like, nope, like I am not going to do what Lindsay was willing to do there. I'm not going to do what they were willing to do. There's no way I could have ever booked that wedding. It's fine. It's all good. We have different goals. Then there are other times where I'm like, man, if I was willing to tweak a little bit this, or maybe our look, maybe they just love the light and airy editorial look of LaRev. Is that something we should consider if that's what our clients are looking at? And they're picking other people instead of me. Like, you have to really, really, really give a crap about winning every sale. I want to every person to reach out to me, minus problems people, which is not that many. I want to book them, right?
Yep.
We do. And so I think like that is a big thing with quality.
I think one of the things that I think about is just like the culture of what we have here. Like Caleb, Travis, they'll come up to me often and be like, this is something that I see, and I think it's going against our overall vision. And like, I know that's a big part of why we're able to do what we do, is because it's not just Jared's vision. It's not just Jason's vision. Like, our people give a crap. Like they care. Like, it's not just me. And I think a lot of people will be like, well, it's hard to get people to care when it's not yours. Right. And I would almost like disagree, or and not even disagree, because yeah, like I'm an owner of the company, but we all own the product, right? We all own what we're putting out and what the pride that we put into the work. And I think I should ask you, just how do you think we've been able to share the overall vision of the company with our employees, staff, like contractors? Like, what are some of the fundamentals that we've done to kind of share that with our team?
I think just a culture of honesty, candor. Like, you can say,
does that mean that you just rail on all of our employees and like
no,
degrade
everyone
them all
is,
the time?
everyone should be themselves and should feel okay to talk the way they want to talk. And there are some things that we wouldn't tolerate, but we just wouldn't hire that person. But in general, it's like everyone is like, if they come and give feedback, they know it's welcomed.
Yeah.
They don't think like, I'm going to get, no, there's no egos around like, well, I really like that color profile. You know, like any of that.
Yeah. And if there is, it's just like, well, I like it. Here, bring in Travis. See what he says.
Yes.
And be like, Travis, what do you think of this? I don't like it. Okay.
Yes. Like everyone,
right.
I think, feels like their voice matters.
Yeah.
And I think we do that in our pay structures. We do that in our bonus structures. We do that in our retirement plans.
Mm-hmm.
We do that. We do a retreat every year, and this retreat is very expensive.
Yeah.
And it's a big investment. And we go somewhere nice on purpose because I'm not just trying to. It's not about me. I want you to know this was expensive, like so that you feel the value of it. Like we do a lot to invest in our people relationally. And of course, like when you've trained up someone from a child, creatively speaking, like they go from knowing nothing to knowing something or knowing a lot or almost being an expert, they're going to feel like that's my mentor, And so like we take leadership, mentorship. I think the big thing is like anyone who you want, if you want to build a culture, you have to serve people. Mm-hmm. Like we try to make everything as easy as possible for people and add value to them. And we're very focused on adding value to them.
Yep.
Like we're not just focused. These people are not doing me a favor by working for me. I feel like I'm not doing them a favor by hiring them. I feel like in some ways people are serving me by working for me. Mm-hmm. And like I feel indebted to them.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you think the people who are working for you or helping you, I got a guy, I don't even know this guy, but he's coming to help us in Aspen. Mm-hmm. And I want him to know I appreciate him. Mm-hmm. You're coming and driving 4 hours to work with me. I'm going to give you money, but that's not appreciate. Like that's a given. Mm-hmm. How I treat him is how I show him how I appreciate him. Yeah. And it's not about the money because anyone can pay someone. Yep. But I do feel like, and I also think this is where I think a lot of people lose steam. We give a lot of correction.
We do.
Many people do not give anyone correction. Mm-hmm. I remember telling somebody was telling me one time about like reviews and being a boss. And they were saying no one should get a review and be surprised by a single thing in the review. Mm-hmm. If they are, you are not a good boss. Yeah. Because that person should be getting feedback as they do their job. Right. And that's how they know you care. And that's how you know that you've actually looked at their work or considered them beyond just did they show up and get me paid. Yep. It's like when we talk about one of our guys, we were talking about their gimbal usage. So I said, I'm going to keep, every time he does a wedding, let me see it. I want to see if they're doing our way of using a gimbal, but also I want to talk to them. Yeah. At some point and say, what's going on here? Yeah. Is this a problem? Do you need help training? Do you need more training? What's the deal? This is why this is important to us. That person will, no matter what, they'll walk away knowing I actually look at their work, which is a little bit of accountability, but in my opinion, also like kind of not a compliment, but it's like it make you feel cared for. Yeah. And I care about them being the best shooter they can possibly be. Yep. And I don't want them to slack off because it's not good for them.
I love this about our company is like that will happen, right? You bring it up. Maybe you talk to them about it.
Yeah, not always.
I talked to them about that specific thing. I think Caleb talked to them about that specific thing. And like it just helps the overall company culture of like we're all getting different inputs, different perspectives, and that lets that one person know like, hey, this is something we're thinking about. This is something that's important, and everyone's on the same page, and no one is being like, why are you doing it this way? It's, hey, what's the deal with this? What happened on this case? And they know just in the future, like we're trying to avoid this as much as possible. Like please, like do what you can to use your gimbal as much as possible in these certain areas because that's part of the product. So they know that it matters. They know that it matters not just to me as a business owner, but also to the people editing it because they share a part in this communal kind of effort to create a really great wedding film. And I think it's just, it does feel really good once things start catching on and I don't have to be the one standing on a soapbox with the team. It's like everyone is just insulating like the product at the end of the day and or the overall experience for the bride and groom, like that hired us. So it's a really good feeling.
Yes. And ultimately like what we're doing, I think is translatable no matter what your business is, and that like intentionality whatever you intention to have, if you're going to have to be disciplined, and you're also going to be saying no to some other things. And I think that's important to know, is like, there's no business model that is going to allow you to do everything every business model does.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and having to give that up is first of all, you have to know your product really well.
Yes.
Like, and so for a lot of people, that might be hard. Maybe
That's just where you're just discovering it right now.
Right.
And that's
right.
okay.
Yeah. But it's important to actually know, like, this is my identity, because then you can actually say, no, I don't do that. I had someone the other day who, like, generally our films are 5 to 6 minutes long for Stop Go Love. We do one that's a little bit longer, maybe 15 to 20 minutes long. But then we do 6 to 10 hours of coverage, anywhere in between there. Our teasers are 1 minute max. And they wanted a 2-minute teaser. They wanted a 10-minute video. They wanted 7 hours of coverage, and they only wanted to pay for 7 hours of coverage. And I was just like,
So they wanted less coverage and more video?
less coverage, more video. But I was just like, flat out, no. That's all we didn't send an email that just said no. But we were like, unfortunately, we don't do those things. Here's what we do.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. Like, if you don't book us, we will book that day. Like, it's no skin off my back. But I'm just telling you, if you want the most out of us, you'll let us do what we do. Like, I'm not going to, and it's just, the amount of videographers that will be like, I need the work. I'm just going to book whatever it takes and do whatever it takes. Like, it wouldn't work in our system. We would do a bad job for that person. And it's not being a jerk. Like, I had one couple that was upset with me when I told them that, like, pretty much, like, this isn't even really worth it to me, like, because it doesn't fit within our system. And it's not being arrogant or anything. It's just like, we're literally not the right fit for you.
We're not that guy.
Like, usually people will use that in terms of, like, I don't like you, therefore we're not a good fit for you. It's like, literally, we're not a good fit for you.
We literally don't do that.
Yes, we can't do it. And if we said we would do it, it would cause, like, this conversation.
I had
for me, like, someone would come back to me a year later and be like, hey, what did you mean when you talked to this person a year ago and you said we were going off the reservoir, like, to do this certain type of film? I'll be like, I don't remember. Like, and therefore we're doing a disservice to this couple.
I was at a wedding last week, and a couple, or not even a couple, like, it was one of these weird weddings where they had a certain, like, family culture that just was different. And for some reason, these people wanted interviews, so many interviews. I actually, sometimes if people like, let me say something to the bride and group, I'll tape it just because hopefully that I'll be like wave or something at the end, so maybe we can actually salvage something out of it. But, like, I'm not going to put anything they said in the video. Yeah. And finally, I'm sitting outside on a break, just, waiting to eat. And this lady comes and sits next to me, and she's like, you guys, you really should be doing, when can I do interviews? I'll find you. And I said, I'm not going to do that with you. Yeah. She's like, why? And I was like, we just don't. She's like, what if your couple wants it? You should give your couples what they want. And I was like, well, we do. Yeah. Like, we just tell them. That's why they hire us. Yeah. I said, like, we just tell that, like, if that's what they wanted, we would tell them then not to hire us. Yeah. Like, and I was just straight up with her. Like, we just tell them we're not a good fit. Yeah. That's just not what we do. Yeah. And, like, a lot of people think, like, oh, studios, they can't do all the creative stuff that I do. Yeah. I can do everything, because I can just say yes and I can do one-offs. And it's like, that's just a function of how few weddings you do, is my guess. If anyone who starts doing anything over 20 weddings is going to realize they can't do everything. And they're going to start losing. They're not going to be able to make every couple happy. Their brand is not going to speak to everyone. Like, by nature, you have to make decisions that exclude people. Who is your ideal client? Who can work with you? Who can shoot with you? Who can edit for you? All these things happen when you make brand decisions and creative decisions about what you do. And I think even a solopreneur is making those choices. And of course a studio is. So I would just say to you, like, no matter what you're choosing, you are choosing to say no. And so I always push back on, like, you have so much more freedom, quote unquote, when you're doing it by yourself. You can do whatever you want. It's like, no, you can't. You can't book 8 weddings in a day. You can't afford to shoot 3 different color profiles in one weekend and see which one you like best. You can't afford to say no to people you just don't want to work with. when you like, there's a lot you can't do,
Yeah.
you know, and also you can't do everything you ever want to do creatively. No one can do that.
Yeah.
Everyone is like going to have to, once they're on the wedding day, just do things the way that they do them. And so I guess my question, like, the last thing I'd say about all this is like, don't think that by having multiple people work for you, that it's going to allow you to do everything, because it won't. You end up in the same place as before, which is like you're having to make choices. And don't think it's going to like be so much more freeing to not have a studio. I don't think they're way different than each other, except for, you know, what you can make. But I think at the end of the day, from a process standpoint, you're still having to make a lot of the same decisions creatively and logistically and organizationally.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, to what scale?
Yeah.
You know, and they'll be a little different maybe. Like you know, I don't know. I'm not gonna. We don't mess around with certain types of coverage. We don't mess around with certain types of edits, like you had described.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I'm gonna say yes to a lot more weddings than someone else might say, and so we're all making compromises.
Yep. Well, guys, hopefully this has been an interesting conversation. I think it's definitely a different conversation. I doubt there's any conversations on the internet about having a wedding film studio and kind of what it takes, what goes
This
into
is
it.
the most unique podcast ever made. That's what we're saying.
But, you know, I don't think we've really done a deep dive into like what it takes to do kind of what we do. Obviously, you know, this is just one perspective.
You have to pay for that, Jared. If you want to have the deep dive, you have to pay for $2,000 coaching.
Is it $2,000?
No. Well, I could just, if you want me to have a deep dive about this podcast specifically, you have to email and I will charge you $2,000.
Well, one of the things that we do at Wedding Film School is coaching with Jason. So if you wanted to check into that, that's something you could do on the Wedding Film
I would love to
School.
help someone get a studio set up.
Sure.
Oh, that'll make my dreams come true.
Do it. Someone
make my dreams come true. Go ahead.
Weddingfilm.school. Check out the website. You can reserve there. You can also submit your wedding films on weddingfilm.school to be able to review it on WFS Live, happening every Thursday, 1 o'clock. We doing that?
Yeah, we're doing that.
Okay. 1 o'clock. And that's where you can also join us live.
It'll be Bobby, or it'll be me, or it'll be me and Bobby, or it'll be Jared.
Yep.
But there's always going to be somebody doing it.
Somebody's going to be doing it. And so that's something you want to check into. Facebook, Instagram, all the places you can find Wedding Film School. Check those out. Great community. And yeah, we will see you hopefully in the next couple weeks here on Wedding Film School.